Heroes created by people's imagination live and commit their acts of bravery in our program, The Legend of Kazakhs. Legends are an invaluable cultural heritage, passed down from generation to generation. In ancient Kazakh traditions, every object or natural phenomena is considered to be a living creature, similar to that of a man. After all, the Kazakh people's outlook is closely linked to the traditions of agriculture and animal husbandry. In landscapes where roads crossed, there was an altar to propitiate the spirits of the host area. Mythological consciousness of the people was made up of myths and legends, which helped the person to determine his own place in society, to understand the complexities of interpersonal relationships in it, as well as to explain the various natural phenomena. For a person in the development of a territory, the most important objects of the world were the valleys, mountains, lakes, and rivers. So people always worshipped the majestic mountains, because that is where, in their opinion, many gods and spirits lived. And if the mountains were of a bizarre shape or color, it would always attract great interest and excited the imagination. These rock formations are the Katutau Mountains, located in the territory of the Altyn Emil National Park. Once upon a time, it was a day when people lived without pets. It was difficult for a man to keep a house, so he decided to call for assistance: a horse, a camel, a sheep, and a donkey. "Come here, horse, to my house," the man said to the horse, "and I will give you food and shelter. I will be combing your magnificent mane, and I'll take very good care of you. I'll jump on your back, and we will be as fast as the wind, carrying across the steppe, and you'll be my friend." The horse nodded his head and left to think. "You nice hardy camel, come live in my house," said the man to the camel. "You wouldn't eat a thorn. I will give you juicy hay, as much water as you can drink, and you will be my friend. Slowly and gradually, we will walk you through the desert." The camel thought for a second and said that soon he would give his answer. Then the man called for a donkey. "You strong and stubborn donkey, come live in my house. You will be warm and dry. You will not freeze or get wet in the open air. And I will pamper you and give you sweet oats. And you will help me to carry my hay." The donkey shook his head and decided it was time to think. And then a sheep passed by the man. The man shouted out to the sheep, "Come and live with me. Why do you always run around the mountains up and down? With me you'll live safely and freely. I will keep you safe from wolves, and you won't shake from cold and hunger in the winter. And I will shear off your silky fur so it won't roll down." I need to think," said the sheep, and he shook his horns. Jerboa was hiding in the grass, and he heard the man calling out to the animals from his house. Jerboa came to the man and began to walk back and forth, and the man didn't even look at him. Then Jerboa shouted to the man in his loud voice, "Why haven't you called for me to live in your house?" The man laughed at him. "You're a good Jerboa. Why would I need you? You're small and you won't bring me hay. You can't be saddled and you don't bring milk or wool. I don't know why I would ever need you, so just leave me alone." The angry Jerboa dived into the tall grass. His resentment and anger towards the man wouldn't let him rest. In the evening, the animals gathered near a large fire, warming themselves and talking to each other. And after a long thought, the animals decided that the next day, as soon as the sun would rise, they would go into the man's house. But then they heard the loud voice of Jerboa. "You fools! What kind of fools are you? Why don't you understand that he needs you only for his needs? As soon as you get to his house, you'll be bending your back in the morning until late at night. And if you suddenly disobey him, he'll beat you with a stick." So the animals became very frightened. "What should we do then, Jerboa?" exclaimed the animals. "We need a shelter, so as not to suffer from heat or cold. We need water and food, which is so hard to find in the desert." "We can handle this ourselves. We will build a common home and live together," Jerboa urged everyone along. "Together it is easier to find food, and we will not be pushed around by the cunning man. Tomorrow early in the morning we will start to build our house." "But none of us know how to build anything." "I can," exclaimed Jerboa. The animals were delighted, and they nodded in agreement. With the first rays of sun, they began to work, and the resourceful Jerboa supervised the animals. "You, dear camel," he said, "you will go to the river and bring in your humps some water. The horse will carry hay, and the donkey will bring us clay. With the clay we'll mix it with water and add it to the hay, and the sheep will trample all thoroughly with his strong hooves. Well, I will build the house." The scorching afternoon sun tormented the animals, so that tirelessly they did their work, and at night the cold wind penetrated them, and they were trembling from exhaustion and cold. The camel carried the water, and the horse his hay. The donkey brought the clay, and the sheep mixed it all. And Jerboa built a huge, spacious house. Jerboa encouraged everyone, and it seemed that he was the only one not tired and exhausted. The animals didn't close their eyes for 3 days, building this house. When the third night came to an end and the dawn of the morning sun rose, loudly Jerboa exclaimed, rubbing his legs, "See, friends, this is our house." The camel, horse, donkey, and sheep raised their heads, and they saw a huge house towering like a mountain. There were many inordinately placed holes in this strange house, as if it had dug burrows. Boasting, Jerboa ran around and the animals shouted, "Look, what a beautiful home we have! Yes, what a great house!" The animals looked at the house and they couldn't get enough of it. Now everyone had plenty of space. They will live and they won't grieve. Suddenly the sky was covered with gray clouds, and thunder and lightning flashed. The first large drops fell on a dry land, and a heavy rain started. But the animals were not afraid of it, because now they had their own house. Playfully, Jerboa jumped in one of the holes and called for the others. The animals rushed into the house to escape the rain. But no matter how much they tried to squeeze the camel through the holes, he couldn't enter in. And the horse could only push his head, but not his body, for he wasn't able to get into the small holes. The rain soaked the clay, and it became smooth and slippery. The donkey and sheep stamped their feet, trying to stay on the wall, but they just slid down the smooth and slippery walls. And they couldn't get into those small holes. Once Jerboa climbed into his hole, he curled up and fell fast asleep. The animals were calling for him, But Jerboa was asleep, and he didn't hear them. The camel, horse, and donkey and sheep were drenched, tired, and hungry, and they wandered to the man. The man graciously welcomed them and warmed and fed them. When Jerboa woke up in the dry and warm burrow, he looked around, but nobody was in the house. He began to cry loudly, calling for the animals, but nobody answered him. Jerboa didn't understand why the animals left him for the man, because the house that he built was such a nice house. He built it in the best way that he knew how, warm and dry. Jerboa was so offended, thinking that he was betrayed by his friends, and left. And the Jerboa started to live on his own in the steppe. The camel, horse, and donkey, as well as the sheep, started to live in the house of the man, and they became his loyal aides and friends. The imagination of nature is never fatigued. Underground elements that broke free have created this amazing sculpture, and rain and wind has given it its final shape. The mountain Katutau, like foam of red sand, is considered to be almost the most beautiful and unusual mountain in Central Asia. These mountains are of volcanic origin. Approximately 200 million years ago, in this place there were two large volcanoes. The mountains are composed mainly of lava and related breeds. Katutau means severe mountains. This is a very ancient mountain that has been destroyed, and the preservation of the volcanic outbursts. The breed is very fragile and falls apart from the physical effects. Water, wind, and time have turned it into its bizarre shape. Also, the sedimentary rock bottom of this ancient Tethys Ocean was preserved. The eruptions of volcanic masses were powerful. Heavy-laden avalanches of debris and rocks covered the large area. The volcanic eruptions were followed by a calm period, during which volcanic material cooled down, compacted, and eroded. In the foothills of the Katutau, there are highlands named Tiger Mountains because of the color of the upper clay, which composes these mountains. The highlands have risen over the past 2 million years. Katutau's highest point reaches an altitude of more than 1,700 meters. In addition to the impact of the time, mining deposits were subjected to erosion. Wind and rains flowed, completing the works of the natural sculpture. The slopes were dissected in a variety of arid canyons. The red clay and bluish-gray calcareous sandstone stood out with its bright stripes. The beauty of Katutau is comparable to the lifeless Martian landscape. At the foot of the mountain, you can barely meet a plant. Sparse vegetation is represented by the scrubby thorn bushes. The locals believe that it is very easy to get lost in these mountains, and the water cannot be found in these rocks. So the attitude towards these amazing mountains is very gentle. There are a lot of legends and stories that were made up about these places. The 700-year-old willow of incredible beauty stores in its memory the ancient legend of a sad love, an evil beauty, the witch, and a stolen beauty. You will hear more about this legend in our next program.